coming up next.
There are no problems in this world whatsoever. Nothing is wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And for so many people, it just breaks my heart that they think, what is wrong with me? And there isn't anything wrong with you. It's just the way your perspective is on life and the way you are looking at things. We don't want to rock the boat. We would rather resist life. We would rather struggle through life. And we just assume that that's the way it's supposed to be because you have a past, you have a history, and you don't want to change that or look at your past because it is very hurtful.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction, your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Well, welcome. I'm Tanya Gioia with Faith Over Addiction, where we are supporting the families who are loving on those struggling with addiction. Today, I have Levy with me. He's going to introduce his work and what he does that will, I'm sure, bring clarification to how you can love your person better, as well as bring into your life more identity in Christ and the understanding that none of us get to transform anybody else, but Christ is within us transforming us. So Levy, share with us who you are, what you do.
I appreciate the time, Tanya, and appreciate the audience who are coming in and listening to us. My name is Levy, and my work and what I do is I try to transform people's perspective on life. I range in trauma, addiction, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things that people aren't have a peace of mind per se, and have a better understanding of how this world works. And for the most part, I am a Christian man as well. And so a lot of people who follow us, it's our center is God, but for other people it might be the consciousness, the one, the wholeness, the universe, Buddha. I'm not here to judge anybody whatsoever. So I'm just letting you know where I stand as far as my belief systems are. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. So tell us how you bring in your unique focus on perspective and on life.
Well, the thing is that I've gone through all of this. I've gone through anxiety, massive depression, suicide as well. I was 2 days out before I was going to commit suicide, and a friend actually beat me to it. And then he left his 12-year-old son. So that's actually
Mhm.
how that saved me. And I concentrated on that 12-year-old boy because I've known him since birth. I used to change his diapers. But we try to look at the energy and in the everything is inside of you. When you're in an addiction mode, you are constantly looking in the outside. So when you're having issues or circumstances that you don't like, those are circumstances that are there, and they are there for you as a gift and an opportunity for you to take a look at to realize that. But unfortunately, we have two worlds that us humans look at. We have a physical world, and then we have a non-physical world. And that's what I try to look at more is the non-physical world, which is your soul. For the 98% of the world who looks at the physical world, they are looking on the outside. And with addiction, you're trying to soothe pain. That's all addiction is. And it doesn't matter if it's food or sex or gambling or alcohol or drugs. You are soothing some form of pain that you've had for a very long time. And chances are it started at childhood.
So, as you're coming in to look at the soul and the pain that is happening, how do you help folks take away that outward vision and to look at themselves when they really don't want to, Levy? That's the last thing they want to do.
This is, you're right, Tanya. This is very difficult work and it is hard work because you have to look deep inside you and you do have to look at your past because that's where it's all generated. If you're in trauma or addiction, you're looking at your soul comes and incarnates into your human body and it has character flaws and it has primal fears. And those are generally three traits. They're insecurity, their inadequacies, and their scarcities. And those are built through the ego. And the ego isn't a good thing at all because that's looking on the outside. And what I try to do is look at the soul. So when you are looking at the ego, it will experience, your environment and even the experiences that you have. And if you're insecure, because we all are, then those are built. I'm not worthy. I'm fat. I'm stupid. I'm whatever your story is. And it's built as a child. And as you get through your teenage years and adult years, it's built and built and built. And then we have the energy of the soul. Because what happens is we have a vibration that we are putting out there into the world. And whatever vibration you're putting out there, that's what's going to become attracted. Someone else on the same frequency is going to be attracted to you. So if you don't think too highly of yourself, or if you don't love yourself, or if you feel guilt, fear, shame, all of those low frequency vibrations, that's what you're going to pick up. And that's the perspective that I want to teach people and show people that you are worthy. There are no problems in this world whatsoever. Nothing is wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And for so many people, it just breaks my heart that they think, what is wrong with me? And there isn't anything wrong with you. It's just the way your perspective is on life and the way you are looking at things.
When you're talking to folks who may be family members of loved ones experiencing addiction and they're saying, well, we could have done this and maybe we should have done this and maybe I didn't do enough over here, or maybe it was when we had this childhood incident, how would you help them bring themselves into their worthiness to vibrate differently?
They have to understand, we all have to understand, we are all doing the best we can at the particular point with what we know. And you can only do what you can do with what you know. So as parents, you're raising your children the best way you can. Sure, in hindsight, there's things you probably could have done differently. But if you're going to be looking at the past, that's your ego, and your ego will feed you constantly lies. The ego always likes to be right and will find evidence on the outside world to show you you should feel guilty. You should feel shame. And it's just all lies. And that's why I try to bring in that perspective of bringing in your soul and starting to love yourself versus, feeling all of those negative feedback.
When you're helping somebody love themselves, what kind of resistance do you face?
You have to first be taking 100% responsibility for your life. If you're going to play the victim or the blame game, I can't do a lot for you. You have to be in a position where you are aware that this life is for you. And your energy is for you. It's not for somebody else. And other people will come in, other opportunities will come in and show you your flaws. If they do trigger you, that's an opportunity. It's not a failure game whatsoever. This world is full of abundance, but unfortunately, so many people have, I call them energy blocks. And it
Mm.
is the negative and the low frequency of the fear, guilt, shame. Again, we go right back to that. And it's a situation where, you don't have to feel that way because the ego is feeding you lies.
Can you give us an example of an energy block and how you may have worked through it with one of the people you've worked with?
Sure. Like I have someone that has an energy block where they're sitting there saying they're unworthy. And then we go back to them and say, why do you feel unworthy? And it goes back to their parents. They were arguers. They fought a lot. And so then what they would do is they would become a people pleaser. And then they could do would be good enough. So then they felt that they weren't worthy. And then they would go into shutdown mode. So then when I sit there and explain to them, your parents were doing the best they could at that time. You are also doing the best that you could do. So you were going through a situation where you learned to become a people pleaser and you didn't want to create any confrontation because you didn't want that. You were in survival mode. And
Mm.
that unfortunately starts at a young age and it carries on through because, again, through the ego, there's evidence on the outside world. Perhaps coaches, teachers, employers, they will bring it out because you're constantly feeding that ego and you're believing it. And it's your belief system. You believe these lies, and
Mm.
that's all they are. And once a client realizes, okay, if they're lies, then and you go back in the history of their past, then you can kind of re-engineer and go forward and change things for them.
How do you walk us through simply, I know this is more complex than I'm going to make it seem like, simply how you would begin to dismantle that lie of I'm unworthy, which is turned into people pleaser, which is how I know myself, how I get validated. How do I how do I dismantle that?
It's awareness. It's awareness that there are two worlds basically. One's a physical world, one's a non-physical world. When you realize that there are two worlds, that the soul is the non-physical and the physical is the exterior. When you start believing the exterior, that's when you run into trouble with your ego because it is going to continue to just bring up the past from your training, I guess, in your belief system, the way that you were raised and your environment. So you continue to talk to your client, and you sit there and you can sit there and say to them that when when you are feeling this way and you feel triggered, why do you feel triggered that you're unworthy? Again, it will go back to the perspective, and your perspectives are based on your perceptions, feeling, touching, tasting, seeing, and hearing. And that those are all integrated into your perspective. So what I try to do is I now you have a perspective that's like this. What we try to do is we widen your perspective. And then when you realize, oh, okay, you're only seeing the world through your perspective. You think everyone else is seeing the same perspective, but they're not because everybody's perspective of reality is different.
If I've attracted someone, friend, family, whoever, who is validating that perspective of me, what do I do then?
Awareness. If you can become aware that you're being triggered, because that's what happens when you start feeling you're triggered and feeling, okay, I feel unworthy in front of this person. This person is dishing me, so to speak. They're talking down to me or they're talking mean to me. You've got to realize they're just words. That's all they are. It's in your mind. So that's what I try to get out of your mind because your ego will feed your mind. So I go into the soul. The soul never lies. So when you are triggered, become aware right off the bat. Okay, why am I feeling this way? And chances are it's control. You don't like what somebody is doing, someone is saying, or somebody is doing, sorry. And so there's resistance and then there's acceptance. So if you can learn to accept what is going on right now, I'm not saying being a doormat or love what's going on, but it is going on no, nevertheless. So acceptance will lead to peace. If you resist what's going on and you struggle with the triggering and then you start responding poorly to them or yelling at them and stuff, you're falling victim to the ego and the lies. And again, that is your old self coming up forward, and it's your identity now, and it's been built since childhood.
So let me give you this scenario. Um, husband and wife, the they used to go out, they used to have a good time, drink a lot, all those types of things. Kind of a classic scenario. She has kids, decides that's not going to work anymore. He's continuing, but they have this balance of, he looks at her and says, "Well, you're no better. You did this too." And she looks at him and says, "Yeah, but I stopped." And then there's this just back and forth. How is she going to take her worthiness and hold her own and choose to make differences when the outside is confronting her all the time? What choices does she have?
uh, the unfortunate thing, there are choices that you have to make, and there are certain people that perhaps are going to come and go in your life. There are going to be people that just don't serve you any longer. There's going to be beliefs that just don't serve you any longer. When you start looking at soul setting, you are going to be losing friends, and there's going to be a chance that you may lose family as well. It's not going to be your choice. It's going to be their choice. And people will often say to you, "Boy, have you ever changed?" And you can sit there and proudly say, "Well, yes, I have," versus, staying in the familiar. And that's where like 95% of us stay is in the familiar. We don't want to rock the boat. We would rather resist life. We would rather struggle through life. And we just assume that that's the way it's supposed to be because you have a past, you have a history, and you don't want to change that or look at your past because it is very hurtful. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, there is a lot of work that is required. But I always tell my clients, the work that you're doing now is a lot more exhaustive than the work that you do with soul setting. Because at some point, like right now, I don't have any depression. I don't have any suicidal thoughts, and I haven't had any in 15 years. And I have had some tremendous things happen to me in my life in the last 4 years alone. If I was my old self, I'm pretty sure, I can't say this obviously, but I'm pretty sure I would have said, enough's enough, and I probably would have committed suicide because it's just too difficult. But with soul setting, I have a peace of mind knowing that the outside world is going to do what they're going to do. I have no control. And in my book, I have a saying or a motto: it just is. Again, I'm not sitting there saying you can resign to people hitting you or people doing this or murder or all that bad stuff or the abuses that go on are horrendous in this world, physical, sexual, whatever. And I'm not saying that, I support that or condone that, but I'm saying that there are a lot of things, 90% of our life is lived in our mind. And we sit there and feed it through the ego, and it's just constantly barraging you with lies, and we just continue to believe it. And so.
So what I'm hearing, Levy, is staying in the familiar, doing this pattern, which seems easier because it's familiar, is harder than doing the soul setting that you're talking about and changing. So define soul setting is a great term. Define that for us and give us an idea of what that looks like.
Soul setting to me is an energy based. It's a situation where you are looking inside of yourself. You already are the essence of who you are, your true potential, and the true who you are authentically. A lot of people are sitting there, they're not happy. And why aren't they happy? Is because they're not being their authentic selves. They have to be a certain way with mother. They have to be a certain way with father or with employers or whatever, versus being themselves. Um, people say this, well, what happens if you just start saying whatever you want to say. Well, obviously, you have to curtail that. You can't be a jerk. You still can be loving and supportive. And if someone is a jerk back to you or not very loving and supporting to you, then you don't have to respond to that. Learn not to respond and be silent and understand that it's just words. And words themselves are just energy. That's all it is. It's just language. And by understanding that, it's just all energy and frequency and vibration that we are all on. We are all interconnected. And people don't understand that we are all interconnected.
And you've used yourself as an example a couple times. What successes have you seen with folks who have come to you and done the soul setting work with you?
Well, one lady, actually, her testimony's in my book or on my website, actually. Sorry, but she's gone to doctors, a couple doctors, and some nurse practitioners and stuff, and she has very bad anxiety. And I kept talking to her, and and I don't like the terminology coaching. I like the terminology just communicating, just like we're doing right here. We're just
Mhm.
talking, and that's all it is. It's just talking about perspectives that I see. Try to open up and widen your perspectives. And so when we were talking about this, and she went through, going through her anxiety, realizing it is old based beliefs, and that were keeping her blocked. It was fear, it was worry about things in her future. And we can't be in the past and we can't be in the future. We can only be here now. Um, but when she started working with us, then she started getting out because she wasn't out very often, and then her children actually saw a difference with her and said, wow, mom, there's a change that's going on with you. Why? And then she mentioned that, she's working with somebody, etc. So it's really exciting to watch that. That's what I love the most is working with clients that I can help.
And if your children notice, that's a huge win
Yeah.
because they are all caught up as children should be doing their thing about them. And what kind of legacy is she able to leave now for those kids? Yeah, what are you helping them to develop so that they can pass that on?
That's exactly right, Tanya, because it's generational sometimes. If you're insecure, then grandma must have been insecure more than likely, grandpa or whoever. It's in lineage. Somewhere's down the road, they were insecure and they were insecure, and they just keep raising you the same way, and without being awakened or realizing, we're living a certain perspective, and there is so much more. And until
Mhm.
somebody talks to you about this, how are you supposed to know? Again,
Mhm.
we're only doing the best we can with the ability and the knowledge that we have.
Well, and I love it that you keep bringing that up, and I love Brene Brown's work around that. That when she first heard it, she said, "Not everybody's doing the best they can," and then she got put in a scenario where she said, "I was doing the best I can." And for those listening, I'd like to really confirm that for today, you are doing the best you can. There are opportunities and choices that you can create different for yourself and your family. Now, Levy, what to speak with you, to work with you, what does that look like? How do you support people?
Yeah, right now I have the book here. It's right in front of me. It actually is on Amazon starting Tuesday. That's when it actually comes out. Is
Woohoo!
Tuesday. Yeah, it's
Uh,
exciting. We have a soulsetting.ca website that you can go to as well to get in touch with us. You can call my publicist as well, Meryl Moss. Yeah, she's on the website as well. But most of the time we do like a Zoom meeting, just like we're doing here. Um,
mhm.
I'm trying to get into more live events where I can talk to people about the soul setting and peace of mind by eliminating the actual mind. Because like I like quotes that I invent, I guess. I haven't seen this one. I think I invented it. But when you give your mind an identity, you give it a voice. And that's dangerous.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, what triggered in my mind, and see if I'm really off base with this, is we've had some collie dogs, and if they don't have something to do, they get very destructive. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, the ego can, if it doesn't have something to do, it goes into the old patterns, it gets very destructive. Whereas with the soul setting, you're bringing it out and saying, hey, there's possibilities. You said it earlier. This is for you, not against you. So
Exactly.
they can read your book, get in touch with you, and how I mean, I'm sure it's different for every person, but if you are in that space, especially with someone you love who is dealing with addiction, and you just keep pounding on yourself and saying, "Oh, I could have, I would have, I da 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 da." How would you bring that person along? Where would you start to build them again?
And you're talking about from a support standpoint, not the
Yes.
person with the addiction. Well, this person, again, they have to learn to love themselves and realize they are doing the best we can. I know we're repeating that, but they're doing the best they can. But they also have to realize you can't force your loved one who's ever addicted to change. You can't force them to change. You have to allow whatever's going to happen with them. They have to change within themselves. They have to see that, and unfortunately, a lot of times you end up hitting rock bottom. I like to try to catch people before they get to rock bottom, but a lot of times they are at rock bottom. They're massively depressed, which creates the addiction. And the addiction is just fighting the pain. That's all it is. So if you can find out what the pain is, then you can start dealing with that pain. Don't sit there and say to the, like, this is talking from the supporter standpoint. Don't say you have to stop eating so much. You have to stop drinking. You have to stop smoking. All that's not what they have to stop. There's nothing wrong with their smoking and their drinking. There's nothing wrong with them, period. What happened to them? Oprah Winfrey and I cannot remember the co-author. They wrote a book, Dr. Bruce Perry. They wrote a book I've read, and it says, "What happened to you?" Because forever and ever, a lot of counselors and doctors have always said, "What's wrong with you?" And the patients come in, "What's wrong with me?" And they start going through and analyzing. When in fact there isn't anything wrong with you. There's just things that have happened to you. So that's what you have to look at. What happened to you? So it was a great book.
I really appreciate that reference, and I'm sure you're familiar with Guy Ramate's work
Yeah.
on. He doesn't say when he sits down with a client, he doesn't say, "How long have you been addicted? How long have you been doing this? Where's the pain?
Yeah.
What brought this on?" And if you're someone supporting someone who is dealing with addiction, that's part of what you're seeing is, and I love what you just said of they're smoking, they're drinking, they're eating, they're gaming, they're doing whatever because it works, not because it doesn't work.
And it
So,
just numbs the pain. It numbs the pain.
mhm,
Yep.
mhm,
Yep.
absolutely. So as a supporter, one of the best things that I work with clients around is how do you get yourself so you're really hearing what's going on with you and what's your pain and what's happening. And I can see this anxiety, all these things, this soul setting, being getting back in touch with you, not being so lost in the other person. So when you're rounding out your book, what are they going to find in the book? What stories, what kind of things can they apply? What are they going to hear?
They're going to hear the stories that I've faced. You know, I didn't want to, and the reason why I wrote this book took me over 4 years to write, but it took me over 20 plus years of research and application into my own life because, like I said, I was suicidal, a massive depression, a lot of medications. I haven't been on any medications in over 15 years. I haven't had a drink of alcohol in over 20 years, and I have no interest in any of it. And like I said, I've gone through some stuff. But in the book, I am not going to give you any coping mechanisms. I'm not going to give you any techniques or methods because this is the reason why I decided to go on this. I was a psychiatric doctor, and one of our last, well, it was the last session because I was so upset. He says, Levy, you have to come to terms that right now we're at a crossroads where I think you're going to have to realize that you're going to have some form of depression for the rest of your life, and we can adjust, yeah, we can adjust your medications up and down accordingly. I can give you some coping mechanisms, techniques, and in my head I'm sitting there saying, and I said this to myself, there is no freaking age without swearing. I am not going to go through this because if this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, I'm just going to end it now. And I was serious because I thought, and I never went back to him. I'm not a doctor, so make sure you understand, your audience understands. I weaned myself off the medications, so I didn't. I'm not recommending you do that. That's what I did. You see your own doctor, or whatever, do what you want to do. But they were not helping me. They were just they weren't looking at the root cause. They were looking at my symptoms, and that's what the difference between the Western world and the Eastern world is. The Western world just
Mhm.
looks at the symptoms, and then they medicate, and give you coping mechanisms. Well, I want to eradicate. I want to eradicate your addiction. I want to eradicate your depression, your peace of mind, your stress. I want you to get your abundance going, your true potential out there. And that's what's in here, and it's just I feel it can help me. It can help millions. And I'm not a brainiac by no means. I don't have a doctorate degree, or I'm just a simple person, but I've spent a lot of time with this, and it's working. And my stress level is down. I'm a real estate developer as well. So I have to deal with the cities and the permits and stuff. And there's a lot of pressure in dealing with that. And I'm not perfect. I'm not walking on water yet, Tanya. Uh, but so I
Still
still
down
have,
here on the plane with the rest of us, right?
I still have issues, and I realize that I'm going to be working on my soul setting for the rest of my life. You've got to be doing something for the rest of your life anyways. If you are addicted, and you are having issues with yourself, and the way you create in your belief system of unworthiness, for example, then
Mhm.
it's going to get worse because you're compounding it with your ego, and more evidence, because your vibration is going out into the world, and more evidence is going to come back in, and you're building, 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 and it's going to be a big struggle for the rest of your life. When you're struggling, it's also going to impact you physically. And there is a lot of illnesses that can be dissolved through the soul, not just through medication, but when you start getting your mind in a different spot through your soul, not your mind, then you realize some of these sicknesses are going away, such as autoimmune system, diseases. So there's a lot of benefits, just a lot of
Enormous. Well, and let's bring it back into the Christian context of we're not worthy because of any work we've done. We're worthy because Jesus came and died for us, and he made us worthy, and God doesn't love us anymore if we perform well or if we perform poorly. He just keeps inviting us to do what you're calling soul setting, of coming back to that wholeness, of coming back to who we really are, of letting that ego go, is what I'm hearing you say, and of looking at this going, I was created worthy. I was totally redeemed. And here I am. And this is nothing that I just have to keep going from medication to doctor to course to class to coach to do all this. What I'm hearing you say is, by figuring this out, you can own your identity. You can own who you really are to start with.
you can own your abundance. You can own everything what, like you said, you can own everything that God is given available to you. I don't know about you or other people, but my God didn't sit there and say, hey, you know what? This world stinks and you're going to suffer like crazy. You know, you do suffer, but looking at your perspective of suffering is a different way, because it's a gift. If you have depression, in my book, I sit there and say, if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have an addiction, trauma, it is a gift. It's not an issue or a problem. None of us have any problems. It just is. And when you start accepting that, perhaps the abuse that you faced as a child, when you get 100% ownership and don't act within the victim mindset, and own it, and go through your soul, then you become free, and your life is like, this is part of my journey. It wasn't done to me, it was done for me. And
Mhm.
it's, God's a wonderful, wonderful place to be.
I would encourage anybody to pick up Levy's book, to get out of the victim mindset. Just that. If you grab that piece of it, that will change your whole life and how you're looking at folks. Because he said it a couple times, something that's really in my belief system as well is, this is happening for me, not to me. And I can take this to the creator and say, okay, I'm not sure I like it. Where's the gift in it? What is it? And this is what you've been saying all along, of changing the perspective. So Livy, give us again the title of your book. It's going to come out on Amazon tomorrow. So we're in the middle of January, so it should be there by the time we roll.
Yep, this Tuesday, the 21st. This is it here, soul setting. And it says, listen to your soul instead of your mind. And It's on, you can go on Amazon right now and you can pre-order it. So if you just go on Amazon, type in Soul Setting Levy, you'll get to my book, and you can read a couple things in there as well, or go to my website, soulsetting.ca. And there are some things about letting go and all kinds of stuff there too. But we're still building our website. We're still adding to it. I've got some videos that I'm working on depression, addiction, and suffering, etc. So we've got
Fantastic.
lot in the go.
Well, Levy, I am so thankful that you're here. You're bringing this message out and that you've said, no more. I'm not going to follow around and be led around by my ego or be led around by the world. I'm going to step in and really listen to who my authenticity is and listen to God and figure out the next step. So thank you for sharing all that with us, Levy. I really appreciate you being here.
Tanya, I really appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.